Hey guys, this is Jay with the Douchebag Brigade, and so there's been a lot of Let's Plays going up on the channel, and I really wanted to do a deep dive into a retrospective on, well, I decided to go with Shin Megami Tensei II, and I know that's really not a game that a lot of people have had the pleasure to experience. It's really, it never really got ported over here, and the only way to really play it is a fan translation that, you know, probably isn't 100% perfect, but obviously props to, I believe it was Aeon Genesis that put it together. I mean, look, it seemed very SMT-esque, humor and dialogue and everything else, and tonality. And, you know, it's one of those games where you've got to be ready to grind, you've got to be ready to fuse, you've got to be ready to, you know, basically in total just have a hell of a time. But it's a tough game. It's definitely not a game for people who are looking for an easy RPG. I mean, then again, in that era, in the early 90s, there weren't that many easy RPGs to begin with, but half the battle is the difficulty. I mean, if there's no difficulty, what's the point in really playing? Other than, I understand there are people that may just play for story, and the story is good. This isn't, you know, your SMT3, which, don't get me wrong, that is my favorite entry in the entire Shin Megami Tensei universe so far that I've played. And the story, but what I mean by that is the story just has very little in terms of, like, you don't have a lot of talking portions in SMT3. In SMT2, there's some story to it, but the real fun comes in when you're really playing through the game. There's so much to enjoy in this game. You know, it's one of those games where everywhere you go, you're getting attacked. Now, that's unheard of in RPGs, especially of that era. I mean, there was never a time where you would walk around town in the mystical kingdom of wherever and get into a battle. And we're at a point when the SMT franchise where you walk around what is supposed to be a safe place where you can save, shop, rest, heal, revive, and you're still getting attacked. You gotta love SMT in general, and Shin Megami Tensei II does not at all fail in comparison when you compare it to its predecessor. So, one thing that you'll notice is there is less in the concept of overworld travel if you've played the original game. The overworld in the original game was very spread out between cities. It was very spread out. There was a little bit more to it overall. Whereas this entry is really based more on the idea and concept of, you know, the world has already been destroyed. So we're not just going to Tokyo when it's in its fine and dandy. We're at a point where we're going to Tokyo and it is already a place that has been rebuilt in certain aspects to small little towns that are not really protected. And then you have places like the Millennium Center, which is the main place for people who are lucky enough to be born as citizens to that area. Now, there are a lot of political elements as usual, a lot of religious, you know, fantasy more than fact or whatever you consider religion. Obviously, it can be, same reason it was never ported over here, I'm sure a lot of it can be offensive if you take it a certain way, but you got to look at it as a video game and an interpretation. You know, and the game is just, it's a lot of fun. You have your fusions. You have fusions with weapons as opposed to just fusing the monsters. Fusing the demons. And it's definitely a game where you're gonna have to fuse a lot, because unlike games like Shin Megami Tensei III and afterwards, there is no way to level up your demons. This is actually my biggest gripe with the game, because I'm the kind of person that I can enjoy a grind. I don't love grinding or anything, but I understand where it comes into play. So, I can perform the grind, heavy tasks. But this game, you still have to grind, but it feels like there's so much less reward when your monsters, they don't rank up like in Persona 1 and 2. They don't level up like in SMT 3 and 4. There's no way for them to evolve or anything like that, like there is in 3. You're kind of just stuck with the basic elements that, that's your demon, and you better hope that it's a strong one, because you better look at the parameters before you fuse, and what skills it's getting or inheriting, because fortunately there is skill inheritance, which was not